Okay, we will pick up with science and religion clash. So two other groups that kind of got into conflict during the 1920s were those who supported scientific theories versus those who supported religious theories. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is this idea of fundamentalism that kind of developed during this time. It had probably existed before, but it became more of a mainstream thought during the 1920s. So fundamentalism was a Protestant movement focused on a literal, exact interpretation of the Bible. So basically, fundamentalists would think that everything written in the Bible happened literally and exactly as it was written. It's an exact truth. And so this kind of radical religious thinking, if you were a fundamentalist, you would reject certain theories that appeared to be too scientific, thus discrediting like God's work according to the Bible. So the biggest example, the easiest one to discuss, of course, is this idea of evolution. Fundamentalists would completely reject the theory of evolution. Instead, they felt that the Bible explained exactly how man was created, literally. And so some fundamentalists begin to call for a law that would prohibit the teaching of evolution in schools, which would be a pretty radical decision if the government decided to pass any kind of law that would make it illegal to teach the theory of evolution in schools. So Tennessee will actually pass a state law in the 1920s that does this. So they have a law that makes it illegal for any teacher to teach the theory of evolution. Well, the ACLU, which is the American Civil Liberties Union, they decide to take a stand on this issue, and they claim that they will defend any teacher in Tennessee who is willing to challenge this law. And the way you would challenge the law is, if you were a teacher, you would teach evolution, be arrested because of this, and then they would defend you in court and try to challenge the law, meaning it'd be unconstitutional. So the teacher that's going to decide to challenge the law is John T. Scopes. He's a teacher in Tennessee who decided to teach evolution. He was soon after arrested, and then the ACLU immediately came to his defense. Now, the ACLU did hire, the name on the screen, Clarence Darrow, as his defense attorney, but I don't need you to know his name. Okay, so the ACLU did defend Scopes. At the Scopes trial, Scopes admitted his guilt immediately. He owned up to it. Yes, I taught about evolution, but I'm challenging this law. The case was very followed in American society. Families would listen to the radio to follow the coverage. They were very interested in what would happen in this case. And in the end, Scopes was actually found guilty, and he was fined some money. I think this verdict was later changed because of a technicality, but the point is he lost the trial, and the law making it illegal for people to teach evolution in the state of Tennessee remained in place for several years to follow. Okay, we're going to, last thing I want to talk about today is the 20s woman and what sort of changes females encounter during the 1920s. So the 1920s were kind of a rebellious period for women. They start to kind of challenge societal norms and views and kind of demand equal independence as their male counterparts were given in society. So from that idea of women kind of challenging, and by the way, the picture on the screen is kind of what you would see as a woman in the 1920s. Even this outfit is a little a little more scandalous in the sense that it's raised and their ankles and calves are being displayed openly. But from this kind of idea of greater freedom for women, the flapper emerges, okay? And a flapper was a term that referred to a young woman who embraced the new fashions and urban attitudes of the day. Flapper fashion, kind of the clothes that you would associate with 1920s fashion, would be the hats, these kind of loose-fitting dresses that fell just below the knee, heels, string beads, but all this kind of replaced the more formal attire that women were in, thick and full attire women were wearing prior to this. As far as their attitudes, women became more assertive in society. It became more normal to see a woman smoking or drinking in public. They wanted to have fun. They wanted to dance. A lot of dances developed during this time. All of these things would have ruined their reputation, years before now. And now it's more acceptable for them to partake in these things. Now, it's kind of important to realize that most women in the 1920s, like most American women, were not flappers. This is what you associate with the 1920s, but not all women were embracing this new lifestyle. But certain things still did change for many, all across the board. Dating, for one. So before the 1920s, courting or engaging in courtships was the more common practice in terms of briefly getting to know someone before you would decide to marry them. Now it's becoming more acceptable to casually date, and that's even different from what it is today. These days when people, when you say, I'm dating someone, that typically implies you're only seeing that person. That wasn't what casual dating was. Casual dating means you can go on multiple dates in a given weekend with different people. And then from there you would later on decide to see someone more significantly from the rest. Now, a double standard did emerge during this period, and you've probably heard the term double standard before. But even though women were granted, not even granted, but they kind of took it for themselves, more societal independence and freedom, that only goes so far. There's still this idea that men have greater, even sexual freedom than women and just freedom in general to loosen up and have fun and enjoy their lives in a bachelor kind of mindset than women do. It's still more acceptable for men to embrace that kind of fun party lifestyle than it is for women. Women were kind of expected to hold themselves to a higher standard of behavior than men were. And that's something that we even kind of see in today's society. But with the freedom being given, there's still that separation in the 1920s. And on Monday, we will talk about pop culture in the 1920s through an activity, and I look forward to that. Y'all have a good weekend. Write down any questions you have, and I'll see you on Monday.